quick appetizer before we get into it, buds. All right, boys. Today we got a great video for you. Shavkat Rakhmonov, 18-0, 18 finishes against Ian the Cuck Garry. What's his record? How do I not have that written down? Against Ian Garry, who was 15-0. If you guys aren't familiar with how we do things around here, I'm going to break down each fighter, their strengths, their weaknesses, everything from their striking, grappling, etc. And then we get to the prediction, and with the prediction, we give you the best bet. So if you're a betting man, you like gambling your money, you don't care where your mortgage, you don't care about what your girlfriend thinks about you, where your parents think about you, what your friends think about you, stick to the end because you're going to want to know the prediction and basically how you're going to win money. This isn't financial advice, but I'm just going to leave that there, all right? All right, so first and foremost, we're going to start off with Ian Garry. Let's get this one out of the way. So with Ian Garry, despite what everyone doesn't like about him, his family stuff, whatever, put that out the window because Ian Garry, he's undefeated for a reason. He's 15-0 for a reason, and he's fought legit guys in the UFC. So with Ian Garry, he is very tall and long, especially for this division. I think so, at least. He's 6'3", and he has a 74.5 inch reach. He's just perfectly built for MMA. I will always say this. Even look at the proof. John Jones, Israel Adesanya. These longer guys always have the best base for MMA when it comes to locking stuff up for submissions or even just striking on the feet. Ian Garry, he's obviously a striker, and we're going to talk about that right now. So with Ian Garry, the biggest strength with him, like I just said, is his striking. No question about it. With Ian Garry, he's not a brawler, but he is almost more like a point fighter. He does get the occasional finish, but lately it's kind of been a bit of a snooze fest his past like 2 or 3 fights. Like, for example, he fought Neil Magny. Neil Magny had one leg the whole fight. The first 2 calf kicks Ian Garry threw at Neil Magny, dropped Neil Magny, and then Neil Magny was just in excruciating pain, and Ian Garry couldn't finish him. But nonetheless, he won. That's all that matters at the end of the day. So with his striking, the best part about his game is that he is great at utilizing his long reach and his footwork. He runs along the cage. He circles a cage constantly, and he picks his opponents apart from a distance. That's what he does. That's what he has been doing since day one. And with that, he is exceptional with his kicks. He'll throw teep kicks to the body to keep his opponents away, to keep him at a kicking distance. He loves fighting at a kicking distance. He'll, like I said, teeps to the body, and he'll also throw, like liver kicks, kidney kicks, whatever the kick may be. Teeps to the face. He mixes it up very well. He doesn't really throw any spinning attacks with his legs, or at all for that matter, at least that I haven't seen. And another thing about his striking, he is so fast. He is lightning fast. He's probably lightning fast when he's watching his wife get plowed down by his food and nutrition trainer, whatever that situation may be. I made an Instagram reel describing his family situation, my most viewed reel to date, 3.5 million views. Apparently I got some information wrong, but again, if you want to check out other stuff that I post like that, it's over on Instagram. I'll put the link in my bio if you guys are interested, but right now we don't care about that. Long format only. Even though this is like my first YouTube video in 2 months, but who cares? And another thing with Ian Garry's striking is that he mixes it up very well. And the great thing about that for him is that his opponents really have no idea what's coming next. So they don't know if it's going to be a lead knee. That's another thing he throws really well. He threw it against GF Neal very well. Always that lead knee. He landed it a couple solid times against him. I'm expecting him to do that against Shavkat Rakhmonov. So that's another weapon. So his opponents really just have no idea what's going to come next. They don't know if it's going to be a kick, a 1-2 down the middle, a 1-2, mixing it up. He mixes up his targets really well. Body head, leg kick, calf kick, teep to the face. Really diverse. And on top of that, on top of like keeping his opponents guessing with his various attacks, he's also really good at feinting. The best strikers in the world are really good at feinting. Alex Volkanovski always feints, constantly feinting, getting reaction, taking notes, and then he pieces up his opponents. Israel Adesanya does the exact same thing. Ian Garry does the exact same thing. When I'm thinking of the best strikers in the UFC right now, they throw a lot of feints. And I'm not talking about the boxers. I'm talking about the overall well-rounded MMA strikers, the guys that throw kicks, spinning wheel kicks, all that kind of stuff. They throw a lot of feints, and that's really important when you're in a fight. That's something I don't do when I spar. I don't throw feints. And then when I'm looking back at footage and I throw a feint and I land a punch right after, it's because of that feint. draws the reaction. You know, people cover up certain ways. People will brace for liver kicks, calf kicks, and then that opens up. If they're covering a body, that opens up their head. At the end of the day, that's just common sense. So that's pretty much Ian Garry's striking in just a quick minute. Now, his grappling, we'll touch on it very briefly because he's shown it once, and that was against MVP. A lot of people, you know, I watched that fight back. It was very close. MVP did way more damage in that fight, but Ian Garry, he got the decision somehow. Is probably just like the Dana White privilege of having an undefeated record, more marketable, whatever. And he's younger. So whatever the case may be, he did showcase he has an overall well-rounded mixed martial arts game, which is really good experience for him, especially leading up to this fight, because there's definitely going to be a lot of grappling involved if Shavkat, I just said Shavkat, change his name right now. Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's going to grapple Ian Garry. I'm going to get into that in a couple minutes. But against MVP, that's the only way you're going to beat him. You're not going to beat him in a point fight, you know, taekwondo, kickboxing fight. No one's going to beat him unless it's maybe Wonder Boy. So people gave Ian Garry shit for that, but that's the way you're going to beat MVP at the end of the day. He grappled him. He almost finished him in the first round with a rear naked choke. And yeah, he just showcased his grappling. He's been training at Chuta Box in Brazil. He's been training all over the world, so he's developing all these sorts of skills, you know, when it comes to striking, grappling, just his MMA arsenal in general. You know, and even Damian Maia was in his corner. To have that guy in your corner, one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in all of mixed martial arts history, even just in the jiu-jitsu world, you can't put a price on that. Trains at Charles Oliveira. These guys, as Chuta Box, if you're familiar with them, will put B-roll right now of their sparring. They go hard. They kill each other. They really beat the shit out of each other in training. And that's why, you know, Oliveira is such a savage. That's why, you know, he gets cut a week before his fight and has to pull out against Islam Makhachev. Brutal that was, but you know, he's surrounding himself with the best in the game. You know, I believe he was with Mark Henry, Gilbert Burns. I think it was American Top Team, if I'm not wrong. So with his weaknesses, he does get tagged. He has a bad tendency of, when he's striking, he'll strike and you'll leave his chin open, and he pulls back often with his chin up in the air, and that leaves yourself susceptible. That was one thing I noticed with just watching his fights back. And another thing too that I'll get into as well is that he does get hit a lot when it's the longer combination. So, you know, he's stepping back, leaning his chin back, leaning his whole body back. That not only leaves your body available for strikes, but also you're going to eventually get caught with the chin. Think of like Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman. Think of that scenario. Anderson Silva was doing all this like stupid stuff, and then Chris Weidman, you know, extended the combo, boom, the hook, slept Anderson Silva, ruined his MMA career after that. And then also his fight against, I forget his name, Song Keenan. I believe it was that one. He got badly hurt in that fight a couple times as well. So, you know, he's gone cracked. He's able to get back from adversity, but the fact that he's gone cracked, you know, makes me a little worried for him in this fight, because Shavkat, I said it again, I'm just going to say Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov is a savage on the feet. He will knock you out. No question about that if you leave your chin open on a platter. Okay, now moving on to everyone's favorite fighter. Pretty much that majority of people watching this, I'm sure, want to see this guy win, myself included. It is Shavkat Rakhmonov. He is 6'1". He has a 77-inch reach. The thing I hate about Shavkat the most, and the reason why I'm so jealous of him, is that my wife, aka Laura Sanko, is in love with him. And that is the only proof I need to back Shavkat in this fight, because, oh my God, I'm in love with her. Do you guys watch those weigh-in shows, the live weigh-in shows? If not, you really should. I'll just say that. I'll put a couple of clips up right here, but I'll just say you really should watch those. All right, so with Shavkat, his striking, he throws pretty much everything from the kitchen sink at his opponents. He, you know, great punches, cracked Jeff Neal, cracked all his opponents. Obviously, his 18 finishes in 18 fights. He has crazy striking, throws head kicks, throws spinning wheel kicks, elbows, great knees in the clinch, even great knees in the pocket. He's just exceptional. He has a great counter striker. And the thing with Shavkat is he's always looking for the finish, no matter where the fight is, no matter if he's hurt, no matter, you know, he's not afraid of getting into a brawl. Watch that Jeff Neal fight again. He's a savage animal. That's why he has 18 finishes in 18 fights. And he's just extremely aggressive. He's always going for the finish. Whether it's on the feet, he'll eat a couple punches to land 3 or 4 of his own to get the finish. Even on the ground, he's always punching. He's always elbowing. It's very rare that he's ever stagnant on the ground. We haven't seen him tired. Maybe this is the first time we're going to see both guys, tired in a 5-round fight. I believe both of them haven't gone 5 rounds in the UFC. I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened. So that's another thing. When Shavkat's on the ground, he's always looking for the mounted guillotines. He's always looking for, Kimuras. He loves fishing for the Darce chokes as well. He even had another thing with him is that, obviously, like I just said, he has exceptional submissions. A lot of his wins have come by submission. The first thing that comes to mind, because I just watched his fight back, is the Wonderboy fight. In the Wonderboy fight, he almost finished him with his beautiful setup. He had the Dagestan handcuff grip. Wonderboy's pinched up against the cage, and he used that handcuff grip. It was pinched up against, behind his back, and he used that to transition to the back and almost choked out Wonderboy from that transition. He didn't get that finish, but he eventually got the finish from a beautiful transition on the ground towards the end of round 2, or right at the end of round 2. If we're talking on the ground, he has exceptional ground and pound as well. I know there was one fight where he threw a spinning wheel kick, dropped his opponent. This was at the Apex, and then he just demolished him. He had the most accurate ground and pound I've ever seen. It was like 2 or 3 strikes. The guy was unconscious, bounced his head like a basketball off the mat. So be careful if you're on the mat with him, Ian Garry. I'll just say that. He'll bounce elbows off your head. It's really anything he'll throw. He has every weapon in his arsenal. He is one of the most complete fighters in UFC right now. His record speaks for itself. I'm not going to say his record for the 19th time. And one of my other favorite things that's another really big strength for him is he's tough and his composure. He doesn't show really any emotions unless it's right after he wins and he's doing the 50K celebration. The one time I saw him give emotion is when Jeff Neal landed a good punch, and he smiled and he was like, okay, this is sick. I believe he did that because he's finally getting the experience. He's finally getting some resilience for once in the UFC. He's just a savage animal. He doesn't show any emotion. He's calm. He just loves to fight. He's not like a Michael Chandler where he's wild and throwing all crazy stuff. He's composed. It's almost like he's in his bed. When I go to bed, I like how Shavkat looks when he's in a UFC fight, which is just insane. And another reason why he is so tough is, in that Neal fight, he lost his mouthpiece. Herb Dean had no idea. Joe Rogan had to mute his mic and scream at him. 3 minutes later, he eventually found the mouth guard and gave it back to Shavkat, and Shavkat ate some huge strikes in that round. And usually fighters, when their mouthpiece is gone, they're gonna, hey ref, my mouthpiece, my mouthpiece, my mouthpiece. And then the ref will pick up the mouthpiece, find a moment in the fight where he can break it up and give him his mouthpiece. Shavkat didn't even say anything. He doesn't even care. He probably spat it out knowing him. He doesn't give a shit about a mouthpiece. He just wants to fight, and that is very scary. That tells you everything you need to know about this man. He's a savage animal, and I'm just so excited to see this fight happen because who knows what's going to happen. Okay, with his weaknesses. So we saw a lot of his weaknesses, you can quote unquote, in that Jeff Neal fight. It told us a lot about him. It told us he has a great chin. It told us he's not scared of getting into a firefight. It told us he's a real savage. It reminded me of the Hamza Chimaev Gilbert Burns fight where it really woke him up. Obviously not to that extent because he didn't get his head spun around like Hamza did against Gilbert Burns. It really showed us. But the thing with that makes me nervous for him in this fight is that, he has a tendency to drop his hands mid-combo, especially when he's in tight. Again, it's like I mentioned before, he'll take a couple shots to give 3 or 4 back. But against Ian Garry, who's a sniper, that is very dangerous. And the fact that, Neal dropped him, you can just put it all together if you want. Ian Garry, he's more than capable of knocking Shavkat out, if he keeps his hands low and gets tagged. And I feel like because he's so aggressive, and I feel like he really wants to keep that, the not even just his undefeated streak, but this finish streak as well. I feel like he might get overzealous while looking for the finish just to be, entertaining and just to have that on his record. If I were to bet on that, I don't think he would do that, but it's possible because we really don't know. We haven't seen too much out of him in those scenarios because he's only been in really one firefight against Jeff Neal. You know, and if he's overly aggressive with Ian Garry is a great counter striker, so he can definitely snipe him. Okay, so now for my prediction for this fight. The way I see this fight going, I see, you know, Ian Garry playing the very safe approach. He's gonna use his teeps. He's really gonna, even then, his teeps might make me a little nervous. He might even just use his calf kicks, teeps, I guess, because he has to keep this fight at a kicking distance. Because if not, Shavkat's gonna shoot down. He's gonna clinch him. I see it being kind of like an ugly style fight, exactly how we fight Wonder Boy. I think that's the approach he has to take against Ian Garry. He's got to be aggressive, but he's got to be cautious. He's got to cut the angles because Ian Gary's going to constantly circle along the fence, making it a little bit of a boring fight. He can't get too overzealous, and he's got to shoot in the takedowns. He's got to just mix in the takedowns. I think his best bet is to, you know, time his entries properly when Ian Gary's going to blitz in with a 1-2 counter or a 1-2 to lead the exchange. He's got to time that perfectly, get Ian Garry against the fence, you know, grind him down, make him tired, eventually take him to the ground, and then from there land ground and pound, you know, look for the finish, and eventually get the finish. So the way I see this fight playing out is I see this fight, you know, Shavkat Rakhmonov taking that approach, and I see him finishing Ian Garry by submission. I see a rear naked choke in his future. But when we're looking at the actual odds for this fight, Ian Garry is this is according to DraftKings, Ian Garry is a plus 270 underdog, which I thought was insane. And Shavkat is a huge minus 340 favorite. So, you know, straight up, I don't see too much value in the Shavkat straight up, but I don't know what the odds are exactly for Shavkat by submission, but whatever that is, I'll do some research and I'll put it up on screen right now. I would hammer that, and if not, I would hammer Shavkat maybe by decision, but what I see is submission for sure, just based on obviously his 18 finishes. And with Ian Garry, if you want to, you know, have some fun, I would take Ian Garry straight up. If you want to be a little more spicy, take Ian Garry by KO. Again, I'll put that up right there. Drop your predictions in the comment section below. Subscribe. Love you all. Have a great day.